Hi, welcome to another edition of 1 in 15. Today, I've got a fantastic guest for you. I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Hello, I'm Susan Murray. I am a stand-up comedian and I am a comedy promoter.
Brilliant. It's really great, Susan. I really appreciate you spending your time with us today. We're talking about trying to talk about big issues that are impacting us. So tell us what one issue that's really hitting your industry at the moment.
Gone. It's been destroyed by the pandemics.
Yeah.
That no live performances are allowed indoors at the moment. They've just changed the law. I think it's this weekend that you can now do outdoor
Yeah.
performances, but they're not really conducive to a great show and a great atmosphere because if you have to socially distance, I mean, comedy relies on people being crammed in together. So, like, say
Yeah.
if you're at a gig and there's people sort of spread out, the ushers will always usher you all to the front because you want to create that kind of energy that really
Sure.
helps. The best play, I don't know if you've ever been to a gig like this, if you're like in a basement, it's a low ceiling, everyone's like crammed together on stools,
Yeah. Yeah.
that creates the best atmosphere. Um, so outdoors, the ceiling's a bit high, isn't it?
Love that.
And so yeah, and it's finding those spaces. So a lot of promoters are now going, right, I need an outdoor space.
Sure.
So yeah, it's just it's hot. It's awful. Like working for 25 years in an industry, and it's a tough job to do,
Yeah.
as I'm sure you can imagine. And then just suddenly having the rug pulled from under you, and like you just go, God, it's way more precarious than I thought it was.
Yeah. And you're right. I mean, I've been reflecting on that like shared experience, like being close to people. I go to a lot of live music, and that kind of sweaty rubbing against
I
people.
love it, don't you?
Yeah,
Roar!
and
Don't get
it's just not
sweating on me.
it's just not the same, is it? Like even comedy, like if you watch a comedy DVD, it's just not as funny as
No.
being there and laughing with
It's
other.
interesting when comics are on TV doing anything, whether it's doing stand up or doing anything other than stand up, presenting jokes.
Yeah,
I always think, oh, I can't stand him. I always go and watch them live, and then make your mind up because
yeah,
it's a completely different beast. It's a completely different experience.
yeah. I've had that with so I'm a big Stuart Lee fan, and I remember
Aren't we all?
trying to promote his work and getting people to watch Comedy Vehicle and just seeing my friends just blank, just not get it at all,
You
and
need
then
different
inviting them
friends,
to
mate.
yeah, and then inviting them to one of his gigs in Leicester Square Theatre, and they were like, "I get it, I totally get it now," and he hasn't done anything different. It's just that the atmosphere, and actually, I think there's parallels with like live anything like sports, like football. The Premiership games they're putting fake crowd noises because it's such an integral part of the experience that watching these guys just kick a ball around, suddenly you understand how, arguably pointless it is. But when there's the crowd cheering, you get sucked into it a bit more.
I
So
think that's
that's
part of being human, isn't it?
yeah,
We love connecting as humans. Because if you think about you know, social media, that's about connecting, isn't it?
yeah,
Because if you can't physically connect, you're going to try and connect in any other way. Like you'd be texting your friends or you'd be like, chatting around on Facebook and all that stuff. People, we just love that kind of collective shared experience because I think it makes you feel normal, doesn't it? It's like, when you're
yeah,
at a job and you don't really get on with anyone and you just think, I feel weird. And it's almost like you need that kind of validation. It's maybe a
yes,
little bit pathetic, but if you're at work and you've got a buddy who understands you, then you go, oh, I'm okay, and it's that sort
yeah.
of feeling of normalcy. I think.
Everything's more possible if there's someone around who gets you. That's the thing. Is that community. That's why families, when they work, are so important because there's someone who's own. You're a freak, but they understand you. You're their freak, and it's fine.
Yeah,
You
and
know.
that's the joy of being a comedian because I found my tribe,
Yeah.
and we might have people who are complete wankers, but he's our wanker. You
Yeah.
know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't love everybody, but I've made so many amazing friends, and we bond because you bond. It's like being in an army regiment. You go through the same experiences that
Yeah.
no one else ever experiences, and you really bond on that kind of quite deep emotional level, and you make some great friends, and they're just kind of, roughly quite all like-minded people,
Yeah.
and it's they're my tribe.
Well, I mean, that's really interesting about. So sociologists talk about a concept called communitas, which is a community formed by shared experience. That the people that you've done stuff with, who get you because they've also done it, and it can be a little us against the world. It can be kind of not always positive, but but it is that thing of like, I've got somewhere where I can go where I don't even have to explain why I'm feeling this way. Someone gets it because they get me because we've done the same thing, and that kind of unique bond. And I guess that's probably true of the comedy, the tribe that's comedy, but must be true of other tribes who kind of do something that us mere mortals don't understand, don't experience on a day to
Yeah, it's
day.
like, being a firefighter or being a policeman, or all those kind of
Yeah,
like jobs where they're very quite unique. That only your workmates get it.
sure. Okay, so I mean, so your one issue is pretty stark. It's like live comedy as we know it is dead. You said that's that you can't put it
Yeah.
more blankly than that. But also we know we've all of us who've been fumbling through this lockdown thing. We know that new shoots are appearing. People are wrestling with ways of reimagining what they do. And we talked about some of the issues already about why recorded presented comedy is not quite the same as that sweaty gig feel. But tell me about some of the innovations that you've seen or you've been involved in your industry.
So the very first gig was a Skype gig done by a resident of Walthamstow, actually, a very good comedian called John Pearson.
Yeah,
Um, so he did a Skype online gig, and then ever since then, people have been doing Zoom gigs in different ways, and I've sort of been sitting back and watching, and I've done a few of the gigs myself.
yeah,
And I'm about to launch my gig online in a few weeks' time. I'm doing a dry run this week, just like an invited. It's more like a tech run for me and my
yeah,
tech guy to sort it between us. What I did, I watched a few of the even people who didn't normally run gigs started up gigs, because you can just do it, sitting at your computer.
of course.
And all the acts that we know, the Harry Hills, the Johnny Vegas, they're all sitting at home as well doing nothing.
Yeah,
So online gigs has become a thing, and there's various ways of doing it, and you can have like an audience. That's the main thing, because I've done gigs where you're just talking into the void
yeah,
and getting no response, and that's just awful. But now we've worked out a way where you can have like a front row, and you can train them up. Don't go, can you get us a lager from the fridge, when
yeah,
you don't feel like you're in a gig, do you? Or dropping ice into a glass, clunk,
yeah,
all that stuff. And I did one for Sarah Millican, and there was a front row, and it was the nearest to a normal gig you would possibly get, because I got a reaction,
yeah,
and it was that kind of buzz that I get from normal. I was like, my God, it was like having a proper gig. So that's how I'm going to set my gig up, and I had to find the tech guy who was doing that stuff.
yeah,
And that took me about 2 months to work out there was someone behind it. I was like, how are these people working these? Then, oh, there's a guy behind it. That's what it is. So I found him, got him to train up my tech guy.
yeah,
And we're going to get that. But I don't know if these online things are dwindling away a bit, because
yeah.
the pubs are now open. I think people are maybe a bit sick of staring at their computers if they're on Zoom for work all day.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, there's two things out of what you said that really interested me. So one is that whole. There's definitely some kind of people are calling it Zoom fatigue. Obviously that other online mediums are available, but that thing of how we interact, like those of us fortunate or unfortunate who've had to go to business meetings over Zoom in lockdown, we know you're on the whole time, like in a way you can't kind of sneak away and pick your nose off camera. It's like this kind of, you're there. So that's really interesting, and I think there is this kind of thing where as people seek to return to whatever normalcy was, that there's a part of us unavoidably where we're going to go, I don't want to do the stuff that got me through lockdown because I want that to be a temporary thing. And it'll be
Yeah.
really interesting going forward to see how much of what we did during lockdown actually we have to take with us into the new way of doing things. So there's that really interests me. But the other thing is, like, you're talking about this front row. This fascinates me because again, it's not. Genuinely hadn't really occurred to me until you started saying it. That of course, any performer needs the reaction. Like performing comedy, particularly
Especially for comedy. I mean, you could probably do poetry or music would be okay as well. But for comedy especially, you really, because that's what it kind of feeds the whole thing, and it affects your confidence. Because if you're sitting there going, because we've all written new material, because you have to deal with the coronavirus, because you can't just go, oh, I'm going to do my set that I was doing 6 months ago, because people are like, what? So you don't know always whether new jokes are working, especially if you're not getting a reaction. So you're going, well, that next one's probably... So you don't deliver it properly. So it all has this kind of like sort of knock-on effect. So, but having the front row there is like yeah, it's the best thing, and it's the nearest thing we're going to get to. But people have started driving gigs as well. They're
Yeah,
popping up here,
yeah,
there,
I've
and
seen that.
everywhere.
So the front row, that you get you get an audible reaction from them as well as you can see their faces responding.
Yeah, you can talk to them.
Well, that's cool because I've been I love your Edinburgh Fringe kind of prep sessions. I try and get to as many as them as I practically can at the Red Imp, and I've loved that. I've loved seeing unknown or well-known comedians literally having those notes in front of them and looking, palpably looking at the reaction, going, well, that one doesn't work, or that one worked, but I can see how I need to change that next time. And it's quite a privilege actually as an audience member to be part of that process. But that's the thing, I really, so I love that idea of a front row, like that having that visceral reaction, having that thing, and knowing subconsciously that there's a bunch of other people behind them that you can't see and can't hear, but hopefully are still engaging and enjoying it. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
really cool.
it should be okay. I'm looking forward to doing my dry run, and then I'm just trying to book someone a
Yeah,
decent name to sort of do an online gig for it did occur to me that I maybe should have tried to do the preview season online,
yeah,
and I do need to I probably will contact the acts because had the best lineup. It
yeah.
was absolutely fucking stellar.
I bet you always have a
It was
great lineup.
such a good lineup. It was the best lineup I've ever done, and it was 3 weeks long, and it was going to be amazing. And now
Yeah,
it's all just, and I can't get upset about it because there's
yeah,
literally nothing I can. It's out of my hands. There's nothing I
yeah.
can do about it.
Well, that's the other thing that occurs to me actually, and we are, we've got about 4 minutes left, so I'm probably introducing something that we can't spend too much time on. But it occurs to me as well that, like I guess in a lot of other industries, the people who've got capacity are benefiting from this actually. So your big name comics have got a following already, so they can experiment with new ways of doing it and know that other people are doing it. One of the things I love about the Red Imp is that you'll get some really big names in, but they'll always have a second act who I've never heard of, who I get to decide whether I want to hear more about. And invariably I do. Sometimes it doesn't click. But those people are obviously, they're going to be, their dependency on the coattails of people who've gone ahead of them is much more stark at the moment,
Yeah,
isn't it?
you put the big name to get the bums on the seats, and then you book the bread and butter comics like myself to sort of support to give
Yeah,
them some work basically. And what's I mean, I have made a run for my own back really with Red Imp because I do get the big names in, but there's so much competition in London. If I just want circuit night on with three unknowns, but they'll have all been doing it like 2 decades,
yeah,
and then circuit, I just don't get enough people in,
yeah,
and it's kind of heartbreaking really, but it's slightly my own fault really because I got a big name and then it's people want the big names, but I think it works because for the acts because they're not too an easier audience, they're not too difficult.
yeah,
And when they are there with their notes, they kind of really get a genuine reaction, and
yeah,
that's why the big names like Omid Jalili loves it, Stuart Lee loves it. That's why they like coming back because it really works in that room. And
yeah,
what's really weird about that room, if I have the stage set the other way around, and I have the seats on the raked stage bit and then the stage on the floor, it doesn't work.
yeah.
It's
That is,
really odd. I've tried it. I did it 4 times, and it just doesn't work half as well. It's so strange. Just changing a little thing, and it's like, oh, the whole dynamic's gone. It's
yeah.
really odd.
I'm really looking forward to when we can physically get back, and I'm hoping, like you, that Red Imp survives as a thing. One thing
Well,
I really
I
like that.
think.
I really
Sorry,
like,
I think what will happen is we'll have to be do socially distance, and then all the windows will have to be open, so it'll be really noisy because there'll be
yeah,
sirens going down High Street. I frequently text the police and go, "Do you think you can switch your sirens off? I've got a show running at the Roasting Crowd just for a laugh." Um,
yeah,
but I'll probably stream the gigs as well as have people in the room.
yeah,
And what I might be able to do maybe next year is because a lot of acts had to stop their tours
yeah,
halfway
of course.
through. So they may want a warm up before they go back on tour. So I might be able to do like a little kind of warm up season before people go back on tour, and
Yeah,
then do Edinburgh previews next summer.
hopefully. That's really, I'm loving this, and I want to talk lots more about it. But we've got about a minute and a half. So, what is the one takeaway? If people have been listening to this, and they're involved in your industry, or there's parallels that they've spotted. Like, where is the hope in this? Where is the energy that they can go forward?
There's other ways of adapting and doing things. Keep the faith; it will come back. And in the meantime, support your arts that are online, because there are performers who have, you know, decades of blood, sweat, and tears, who are on the verge of like losing their homes because they can't work. You know,
Sure.
they can't work, and if you do know a performer who needs another job, give them another job because they probably
Yeah.
really need it.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
ignore their CV because that'll be a basket case.
Yeah, of course. But they're mostly relatively normal people. Well, let's not say that, but they're good. They could probably do the job. Yeah, that'll
They're
do.
very adaptable people.
Yeah. Okay, so that's really good. So there's the challenge for us is to keep engaging with the creative industry, even if it feels a little bit weird, even knowing that it's not the same as it used to be. And it'll be interesting going forward to see how, as I say, the things that we love that we can't engage with now, how they actually get taken forward into the new brave new world. But there'll be stuff as well that's emerged in the pandemic, I'm sure, in comedy as with everything else, where we can take that into the new world actually as well, and it'll be brilliant. Though I'm looking forward to being one of the select few at a Red Imp gig, knowing that it's also being streamed live, knowing that all waiting for the police siren to come past. There's my timer. Susan, thank you so much for today. It's been a
My
pleasure.
pleasure, Andy. It's been really good fun. Thank
You're
you.
a star. Bless you.